West quotes, looking ahead, I believe that the underlying importance of higher education, of science and technology, of research and scholarship to our quality of life, to the strength of our economy, to our society, in many dimensions will continue to be the most important message. The Department of Electrical and Electronics of PA College of Engineering is proud to organize a webinar on higher education in overseas countries. I now request Professor John Walder, HOD, Department of Electrical and Electronics, to introduce and welcome our distinguished resource person for today's webinar.
Thank you, Madam. Good afternoon, all my dear participants. A hearty welcome to you all to this first webinar from the Department of Electrical and Electronics Department. We have with us our alumni and my friend, Mr. Sushant Kinney, who has wholeheartedly agreed to share his educational experience with us at the click of a WhatsApp message. Before welcoming sir, I just want to share a few words about him. Mr. Sushant Kinney has completed his graduation in Electronics and Communication in the year 2012. During his college days, he was very creative and outstanding student. He had the capacity of leading college activities and in fact had the credit of leading face-to-face similar activities. Then also he led the very successfully technical events, workshop, etc. The list is very big. He was our best outgoing student in the year 2012 and he was my favorite student as well. He is among the few students from this region to be placed in Robert Bosch Engineering as a software engineering and worked in that company till 2014. Recognizing his ability, the company had sponsored him to do MS and he proceeded to complete MS in Microsystems Engineering from Albert Ludwig University, Germany in the year 2017. He was a curious thinker during his childhood as well as during the college days. He was very fascinated about the things which are revolving around us. So he had the desire to do the highest ever degree possible. So today he is on the verge of completing a PhD from the famous Chalmers University of Technology, Gothenburg, Sweden. On behalf of my colleagues from the Department of Electrical and Electronics and all my dear participants, I warmly welcome Mr. Sushant Kinney to this session. A warm welcome to you, sir. Sushant, can you hear?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Is my audio clear?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right. So I think I can start quickly. And as I had already, I think you have to make me the co-host so I can share my screen.
Yeah, Vittal sir will be doing. Vittal sir.
Yeah, because I'm not able to share my screen right now. Oh, yes. All right. Now I can share my screen. Right. And I think my screen is visible. All right. So my PowerPoint today is very short. It's about 6 slides, which I have right now, which give an overall view of what are the things that one must do if he or she wants to do their higher education abroad. And then I think, as I have informed the organizers and all the students might know, that this is going to be an interactive session. So I would like you people to ask me questions regarding what are the doubts you have, and then I can answer them to the best of my abilities. So let's begin. So what are the contents of today's session? First, I will talk about academic requirements. So what are the things that you academically require to be eligible to apply for a position as a master student abroad. Then what does an application have? So in an application, what are the things you must include in it to be a successful application? What are the steps involved in applying to universities? And then what are the steps after your application has been accepted? And then we will move on to the sessions where the floor is open to all the participants. So academic requirements. So the first academic requirement is good overall academic performance. As I put a star on the side, so there's an asterisk there because it's not really required for all universities abroad, because few universities don't really consider your overall aggregate score that you have in your 4 years of engineering, but they can consider these competitive exams which you write, which I will come to in a few seconds. But even though it's not very important for a few colleges, I think most of the colleges do look for a good overall academic performance. So if you look at the numbers from VTU, if I want to speak from students who are going to VTU, I think you have to maintain an aggregate of 65% and above. Would be a great way to have a strong application. The next are these exams which you might have already heard of. First one is GRE, which is basically an aptitude examination, which is used by most universities all over the world. Especially in the US, it's used in Europe, in Australia, Singapore. Most of the universities use GRE. So just a brief explanation of what does GRE have. So GRE is divided into 3 main parts. So the first part is analytical writing, where you write 2 essays. So they will hand you 2 topics and you write 2 essays. So they judge your thinking, how you write, and so on. Next is verbal reasoning, which basically is reading exercises. So you have to read comprehension and then understand and answer questions. And then quantitative reasoning, what the people who have already started preparing for placements call aptitude tests. So they give you graphs and you have to analyze the graphs and answer questions and so on and so forth. So these 3 are the main parts of GRE. And then there is English language proficiency test. So most of the master courses abroad are in English. If you are an international student who is going there, I would assume that the course you want to do is in English. So you have to prove your English proficiency. You might feel that it's not required, since we as Indians have been learning English since school, but it's not necessarily the case for all the international applicants. So people come from all over the world and apply to universities, and you need to prove that you know your hold of English is good. So there are 2 tests that you can write. One is TOEFL, it's test for English as a foreign language, and IELTS, that is the International English Language Testing System. In terms of what is better and what's worse, there's no answer, because there are people who prefer TOEFL and there are people who prefer IELTS. So there is no real winner here. But in terms of the tests being structured, they have the same structure. So the exam is divided into 4 sections. So there is reading, writing, listening, and speaking. The only difference between TOEFL and IELTS in terms of the exam structure, which I can recall, is that in TOEFL, you do all the 4 sections in a day, and you do speaking into a PPC, and your audio is recorded and then somebody else hears it. Whereas in IELTS, speaking is done in person. So there'll be an examiner and you speak to them. So in terms of if you are more comfortable not speaking into a mic, but speaking to a person, then IELTS might be a bit better for you. And one more difference, which is not really that huge, is that IELTS is run by a British company. So it's more closer to the English that we learned in school, whereas TOEFL is an American based testing form. But in terms of how you write and so on, so there is no difference. It won't affect whether you write in American English or you write in British English. So these are the academic requirements. What do you need in terms of exams and so on. And now let's go to contents of an application. So first thing, what most universities have, they have their online web portal where you choose which is the course you are looking for and you apply for it online. You will fill in all of your details and then you will get a printout which you sign. And then you will send this along with all the documents that I will list down now to your universities by post. So first things you need are letter of recommendations, and you require minimum of 2 letter of recommendations. And letter of recommendations are usually written by professors, like your head of the department or the principal of your university or college. But the most important thing is that the person who writes your letter of recommendation should know you. So they should have seen your work or they should have been your teacher and so on. And the reason I've mentioned project managers is there might be a few of you who will decide to go to the industry now to work for a couple of years and so on, and then think about doing your master's. And there you can also ask your project manager to write a letter of recommendation for you, because you have worked under them. So the letter of recommendation would have basically the professor writing about you as a student, how do you perform, and they should write why should the university accept your application for being a student there. So this is what the letter of recommendation should have. Next is a letter of purpose that is written by you, saying why do you want to do your master's, why do you want to do it at this particular university, why are you interested and why are you a good fit for this university. And this is one thing which most when they apply online is they write just one letter of purpose for all the applications, which is not really right. So you must write a tailored letter of purpose for each application you do. So for the different universities, you need to change your letter of purpose slightly so that it fits your application. And then next is attested copies of all your certificates, so your mark sheets of SLC, your PUC, your engineering mark sheets from VTU, and so on. And also one thing which I think I have forgotten to write is your CV. You need to have a well-structured CV as well to be sent along with this. And then you have to attach your scores from your GRE and your TOEFL IELTS scores. So this makes up an application to a university so that the university can judge whether you are eligible to join them or not. So now, what are the steps to applying to a university abroad? First thing is you need to decide whether you really want to do higher education abroad or not. And then I think I can speak more about this at the end, where I can give my opinions regarding how to decide whether you want to do it or not. Once you decide you want to do it, you have to decide where would you like to do it, because there are so many options right now. And you can decide based on your financial stability, whether you have a scholarship, but there are few places where you have already decided that this is the area I want to do my master's in, and then your areas are very narrow because only a few universities would offer a course in that area. Here point 2 and point 3 are interchangeable. So you can first decide which is the area where you want to do it in, and then you can see which other countries, which universities do provide it, or you can say, okay, I want to do it in the US, and then see what are the courses that are there and what is in your area of interest. And then you need to prepare and take the required test, that is GRE or TOEFL or IELTS. So you need to spend time to prepare for these tests, because these tests are not cheap, right? The GRE fees, if I am not wrong, when I was a student was about $180 US, and the test for TOEFL was $150 US. So it's not very cheap. It's not that you can write it again and again. So you need to prepare well before you go to take your tests. Then you need to prepare your application, what we spoke about in the previous slide, all the steps that you need to follow to prepare your application. And then you mail your application to the university by post. And then you wait for your letter of approval or rejection. So most universities either send you a letter of approval or a letter of rejection. Then this process usually takes about 2 to 3 months, because they have hundreds of applicants and they need to go through all the applications to decide whom to approve and whom to reject. Steps after your application is accepted is pretty small. So you have to secure your finances. So if you have your own money, it's good. Either you go to the bank to get a loan and so on, because the next step, when you apply for a visa, this is the most important thing, because when you're applying for a visa, you need to show that you already have the money to stay in that country for 1 year or 2 years, or no matter how long your master's is. So you need to first secure your finances and then apply for a visa. And then once your visa is approved, you have to start looking for accommodation in that country and then start for travel preparation. This might not be applicable to everybody, because some universities in the US, if your application is accepted by default, you get a hostel room and you stay there on campus or off campus. But most universities, especially in Europe, where I studied, not many universities provide accommodation to their students. So it's upon the students to look for accommodations in the city. So I think in terms of what I wanted to talk about, it's fairly short. And now we can start with the questions from students regarding, if you have any specific question you want to ask about something I said, or something that you just have in your mind, please go ahead and ask, and I'll be more than happy to answer. Yeah, thank you.
Sushant, can you tell about Divesh Shetty here? Can you tell about some scholarships available?
Yes. So the scholarships in general are very limited, because the scholarships are based on certain countries and certain courses. So the first scholarship that you can apply for is the scholarships you can apply for when you are already in India and you're applying for a different country. And then you have to look at scholarships in certain universities which they provide for students coming from developing countries like India for particular courses, or there are certain scholarships which are provided by the Indian embassy in certain places to apply, for so on. And then there are the second kind of scholarships which you can apply for once you are there. So once you are in your country of choice, you start your master's, there are certain scholarships you can apply for, and then there you get the scholarship based on your academic performance in your master's. So there are not a lot of scholarship opportunities there, mainly because what I know about, because I did my master's in Europe, so I know about that most of the education in Europe is funded by the state, by the government. So scholarship people from there is of no use because it's already free education. But for people who are coming from abroad, there are certain scholarships, but they are quite limited and they are for certain streams, for certain masters, and people coming from certain areas of the world. So you have to, once you know where you want to do it, you have to just do a bit more research, which are the scholarships available for you and which you can apply for.
Okay, thank you. And one more question. Which country is more preferable for doing MS?
Well, that's a very hard question to answer because so it depends on a lot of situations. So for most people, at least when growing up, what I used to hear was, okay, masters means US, and it is kind of beneficial to us because most people would go to do their masters with the view that I will find a job in that particular country and work there. And then US helps us because we know English very well. And US being an English speaking country, you can find a job there very easily once you do your masters. Whereas doing it in Europe, for example, in Germany or so on, you have to learn the local language to find a job there. Even though nowadays English is more a global language, it's the big business language, but still most of the companies in Europe would require you to learn the local language. Say in France, you need to learn French and so on. But on the flip side, the cost of education in the US is far, far higher than in Europe. So when I was looking to go, I think it would take about 50 to 60 lakhs to do your master's in US. Whereas if you compare it to Europe, you could finish it in 15 lakhs or 20 lakhs based on which country you look at, but not as much as the US. So that once you take that into account, you have that. And also you should think about the current economic environment abroad and in India as well. With that, I would say there's no set answer saying which country would be best. I think what you should look at is which field. Like if you're really interested in some field, then you have to do it in that university, and then you have to look at where are the universities available, and then you have to just make a list of the pros and the cons, and then decide what is more convenient for you. Because in terms of level of education, I think both in the US, in Europe, in Australia, Singapore, it's more or less constant everywhere. It's good. So no matter where you go, the level of education is good. It's just the ease of having a job afterwards is a bit easier in the US, but also the financial strain is more in the US. Yeah, thank you.
Sushant, I have a question. I'll pose a question where you have ended only. I just wanted to ask, like most of the participants here, I guess they are budding engineers from the Department of Electrical Electronics, EC. Yes. I guess BT is also there. So can you tell me which are the ones which have got more trending as a specialization in MS? Which can they look forward for if they are going for an MS?
Well, see, the one thing which is a main difference between doing your bachelor's and MS is that bachelor's is quite generic, right? So electronics and communication is very generic because you learn everything from electronics to HDL to signal systems to network. You learn everything there. Same thing with E&E. But then when you're doing your master's, it's very specific. So you have to look at one stream. So like, for example, there are masters in embedded systems, which is like a sub branch of electronics, or there's a master's in microsystems, which is also a sub branch of electronics, and so on. In terms of what is right now high, I would say MEMS is a topic which is pretty hot right now here. So there are a lot of companies investing in MEMS technology. So MEMS is micro electromechanical systems. So it's a mixture of electronics and mechanics. And also one thing that is again hotting up here is this hybrid courses where, you have a mixture of mechanics and electronics, you have mechanics and optics, and so on and so forth. So the hybrid courses are also sort of gaining steam here.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's based on your really your interest, because I don't think, at least I don't recall seeing anywhere where there's masters in electrical electronics, because it's usually masters in high power electronics or something. So it's very streamlined to a particular area.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sushant, John Walter here.
Yes, sir.
Majority of our students are from middle income.
Yes.
So accumulating like 15 lakhs, 20 lakhs will be a problem for them.
Yes.
So my one question is there, suppose say we have an amount of some 10 lakh, then that amount is not enough to stay or get accommodation in European countries.
Yes.
So how do they can manage by working in those countries and together with the studies?
So one particular thing that would help students who are coming from our countries are, you can also work while you are a student. So you can become like a research assistant. So there are two kinds of jobs that you can get. Let me go back a bit. You can get two kinds of jobs once you're there. So once you have joined, once you have come to a country, you can either work in a non-academic job. Say you can work as help for some other job and so on, which gives you a good income. And you can also work in an academic setting where you work as a research assistant, you help a PhD or you help a postdoc with his experiments and you get paid and so on. And the pay for this is also pretty good, and you can earn enough to sustain yourself for a month or two. So I think most students who I know, including myself, once we go to there, you find a job in an academic setting where it's a group or it's a research area which you want to learn more about, and then you go to them and you tell, I would like to work here. And then based on the opportunities, you can work there as well. So that is also a stream of income that you can have in parallel to the income you already have.
Yeah, good. Is it guaranteed by the university or government?
No. So the jobs for the jobs, the students are not guaranteed for the university. It's always based on your self-interest and how badly you want it. So the more you are out there, the more you make yourself visible and talk to people and show that you are really capable of doing these jobs. I think it's easier in an academic setting. In a non-academic setting, it's also based on how well are your contacts, how many people you know, and so on. One point which I would like to make is for a non-academic setting job in Europe, it is very essential that you know the local language, because you would work with people who are locals there. In an academic setting, it's not very important because in research, most people speak English. So you can work there without any issues.
Sushant, you mean there are no restrictions by the government to work in non-academic side?
So like there are restrictions. So in your visa. Okay, I am speaking from my experience when I got the visa for Germany. So I'm not very familiar with how is it in the US, but it must be somewhat similar because you are having a visa as a student. You can't work as a full-time employee. That's the only thing. So there are the number of hours per month that you can work, and then most of the people who hire students will know this, and the contract you are given is within this time, that you don't exceed the number of hours you can work according to your visa.
Yeah, good. I'm requesting other participants, please put your questions to Sushant Kini.
Hello, sir. So
Yes.
Melton here.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So as you told, like we can do a part-time job or something like that, but will it affect our learning hours or class hours?
Not really, because at least the courses which I know in which I went to were not stacked. So it's not like bachelor's where you have college from morning 9 to 4 every day. So the classes are basically 2-hour sessions, and you'll have like 1 or 2 sessions per day, and there'll be days which are completely free as well. So most people who hire students will have shifts, and you can basically have your shift in the time when you are free, when you don't have time. I mean, when you don't have to go to university or study or something, you can do your shifts at that time. So you are very flexible in that way.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions from any participants here? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sushant.
Madam, 1 minute.
Yes,
We have other students, so please interact. Sushant is our own student. He speaks Konkani, he speaks Kannada. Please put your questions in Kannada. Ashik.
Hello, sir. So
Yes,
Melton
yes.
here again.
Yeah.
So I have a question, like to arrange money or something like that. In Germany, it will cost something around 15 to 20, and
Yes.
in US maybe it's more. But
Yes.
how we can arrange? You have any idea about how the banks are giving loans or
So the banks do provide educational loan, and then it's the same system where how loans work for everything, that you have to give I think you have to pay 5% or 10% of the overall amount that you are looking for. And then I think most education loans right now, my understanding about banking and loans is very bad, but nonetheless, I think most banks these days have this thing where you start to repay the loan once you have a job. So I think in terms of that, banks are quite flexible because they know that once a student has a job, the repayment goes very smoothly. So it doesn't matter what's the amount, because they know what is the amount people apply for based on where they're going.
Yeah, so we have to keep a guarantee amount or something like that.
Yes. Which is, I think, fairly constant for all kinds of loans, what you take.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shishant, does it really make a difference whether you're studying in UK for 1 year course or in other parts of the Europe where you study for 2 years?
Yes. So it does make a difference for a few places. For example, if you're looking for to do your PhD or something, then there are people who look for PhDs who can only apply who have done their courses in 2 years. And there are certain companies as well who look for people who have done for 2 years, because in terms of years, it's like each year of your master's is 60 ECTS. So ECTS is basically your total credits you get for completing your subjects. And then if you do it for 2 years, it means it's 120 ECTS. And if you have a look at certain job requirements and so on, they mention that we need students who have completed this 120 ECTS courses. And especially for people who are applying for PhD positions, they are very strict that it has to be 120 ECTS. But it's not an hard and fast rule, because there are companies that don't have this requirement, and they're okay with people doing a master's in a year. Yeah.
Rizal, you have a question. Please put your question. Rizal.
Yes, sir. Rizal Rahim here. Sir, how easy is it to get a visa abroad for a student?
So, I mean, the thing is, it's very easy to get a visa abroad, because the most important thing for a visa is the letter of admission. So if the university abroad has sent you a letter saying that you have been admitted into the university, the only additional thing you need to show is your finance, and then there is no problem in terms of you getting a visa, unless the government of the other country has introduced some limits. But if you have been accepted from the university, I don't see any issue why you will not get a visa.
Yeah, I've heard about how hard it is to get a visa abroad for a people
In
who.
terms of because see, there are two kinds of visas people apply for. So one is this visa where you say I have not yet gotten the application, but I will go there and apply, or I'll go there and apply for a job, which is very speculative visa. So it's not that you do have something, but if in case you already have the letter of approval from them, I don't see any issues for you to get a visa on that basis.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sushant, I think a few people have posted their queries in chat box. Can you answer them?
Yeah. So, the first question I can see somebody from Chetana who says, I selected Masters in Public Health. Are Canadian universities better for studying or USA? Well, Chetana, I'm sorry. So public health is not my field. So I don't really know about which universities are better in this area. But in terms of the level of education, I think Canadian universities are at par with the universities in the US. So I wouldn't think that it's better or worse to do in US, but I don't know about your stream. So I'm sorry, I'm not able to answer that question. I have Sahil who has asked, can a student be allowed to visit home for vacation? Of course. So you can go home to visit in this 2-year course. So you can always go home and come back if you have a valid visa which is available. There's somebody who has written courses other than MS. Well, of course, there are courses other than MS, like this MBA and so on, which you can do as well. And for MBA, you should write a different exam called GMAT if you're looking to do MBA. But unfortunately, I don't have more information regarding courses other than MS because I haven't seen or done my research on them. But there are courses, and I do know people who have come here to study arts and history and so on. So of course, like there are courses, but I'm sorry, my know-how in this area is pretty less. So there's one more question by Chaitanya saying, do you require TOEFL because already took IELTS? No. So if you should take either TOEFL or IELTS because it's just one exam to show that you have English proficiency. So you don't have to take both of them. So what you have to keep in mind, I think most universities are fairly flexible. They say TOEFL or IELTS based on, but I have seen that few universities ask specifically for TOEFL or IELTS. Then you have to make a decision whether you want to apply to that university. If yes, then you need to give this particular exam. But I think speaking in terms of general, I think TOEFL or IELTS is good.
Okay. At what part of the year you'll have the GRE and these IELTS exams or TOEFL?
I think the exams are held all over the year. So there's no fixed time because they are conducted online. So I think in terms of GRE, there are 6 to 8 slots every month where you can go. And then for TOEFL as well, I think every week there is one session held at different areas. So there's no time that you have to do it in this time of the year. But you have to have a look at when are the applications open. So what is the main thing is that the universities you're applying for have their applications open for a certain time only. So you need to send in your application by then. So you need to plan your exams so that you can match that deadline.
So validity is there for 1 or 2 years once you clear one test?
For your score of GRE and TOEFL, I think the validity is for 3 years, if I'm not wrong. for 3 years.
Okay. How do you suggest the students how to prepare for, what do you suggest the students to prepare for GRE and TOEFL?
Well, so TOEFL is, so I'm speaking from now, it's my opinion. So TOEFL is fairly easy. If you are, so since TOEFL is an American based system, so you have to hear some American people talk and so on. And then if you read books, if you watch movies and so on, I think you'll find it fairly easy to understand what they say, and to write the exam. It's very easy in case you are comfortable with English. For GRE, it's a simple aptitude test. So you need to just, when you prepare for your placements, you prepare for aptitude test, you give your mock test and so on. So you can do that as well. Like there are certain coaching institutes for GRE and TOEFL, which you can take in case you don't feel that confident in your ability, that you need some coaching. But I think in principle, you can practice at home. You get a book for GRE and then solve papers. I think you'll just gain confidence and you can write it. So there's one question by Sahil, who says that he has heard that many universities have less session of class and more assignment-based sessions. Is this true? Like, so not really. So most universities, I can speak from my university, what I did it. So we had one class per week and one assignment session per week. So you had your class where you would get your assignment, and then you would solve the assignment, and then you would have an assignment session where the assignment was discussed and somebody would solve it. And then 2 to 3 per session, it depends on how many subjects you have taken. So there's one difference between bachelor's and master's in most universities, is that in master's, you will pick your courses. So you say that I want to take ABC courses in this semester, or there are people who are confident and can take 5 courses in a semester. And then you should see how is your schedule. But yeah, if it is 2 to 3 per session, it means that they have taken 2 or 3 sub-objects and they have all lined up on the same time. So then it's quite hectic for sure. So there's one question by Chaitana, which GRE is better, either the one on the computer or paper? I think it's the same. There's no difference. It's just about your how comfortable you are. So I don't see a difference between the level of the exam. Either it's on computer or on paper. Yes.
So Risal here again, how easy is it to get accustomed to the surroundings if you go abroad, like first?
So this is quite a hard question to answer because it's based on how you are as a person. So if you are quite social and you're quite jovial and so on, it's very easy because it's not just you. There will be like tens of hundreds of students who are in the same situation you are, who are going to leave their houses and countries and come abroad to do their masters and get to meet people. So I think it's based on how you are. But from experience, I think it's very, very easy with a lot of people. It's a very international audience. So you get to meet people from different parts of the world and become friends with them. So I think it's good and it's fairly easy in case you are social in your demeanor.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. So any more questions? Yes, I have one question from Sahil here. Taking a few subjects in a semester or overall year, does it affect the? So no, it does not affect the value of your degree. So I mean, I can speak from a point of view in Germany how it is. So in Germany, there is no fixed time that you have to finish your master's in 2 years. You can take 2.5 years, 3 years based on if you take it slowly, it's fine. Whereas in the US, it's a bit strict. It is 1.5 years, it's 18 months. And there the courses are a bit more. So you have to pack in your courses into 18 months to finish off everything. But in terms of the value of your degree, no, it does not affect your value if you do it in 1.5 years, 2 years, or 3 years.
Sushant, one more question from John Walter.
Yes, sir.
Do we really require like MS courses to prosper in life?
Well, it's a really hard question to answer. Do we really require MS? So what I have seen, most people who have asked me or who I have interacted with when I was applying, saying, you know, will I earn more if I do my master's abroad? You will, of course, you will earn more if you do your master's abroad, because you, with the asterisk that you have your job in that country where you did it. But you have to look at a picture which is bigger. So in my opinion, if you are doing masters, you should really want to do masters. You should really have the will to study, and you should like the whole act of studying. Because if you're doing it only for, you know, with the sight in your mind that after I finish my masters, I will earn 5 to 6 times more than what I would in India, then I don't know if you're doing it for the right reason. Because you can do the same thing by staying in India, by working hard in a company. In about 3 years or 4 years, you can get promotion, you can change companies and get a raise, and you can earn as much, with the fact that you don't have to spend 50, 60 lakhs earlier to reach that point. So you can earn money, you can save money by staying in India and working. But if you really want to study, you really have the urge to study, then I would completely encourage you to do it. Because it's great, because you meet people from different countries, you learn new things, and it's very good. But then it's about, you have to weigh in why you want to do it. Yeah, so that's my answer. It's very opinion based, so that's my opinion. But yeah, different people have different opinions regarding why should you do masters, but that's what I would think. So
Hello, sir. So I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
So how easy to get a job there, like once we complete our MS or something?
So
like
I mean, as I said, it depends where you do it. For example, in the US, it is fairly easy. So I do know people in the US who have not found jobs. It's very less people. But but in Europe, if you're doing it in Europe, or especially Europe, because if you do it in Singapore or Australia, it's the same situation in the US. So because most of the companies, they work in English, so it's easier for you to find a job. It's almost based on whether there is a demand for it, whether there's a demand for people from your field. And if you are from engineering, it's good because the engineering always has demand, no matter what you do. But if you're in Europe, it's easy to find a job if you know the local language well. So for example, if you know German well, it's quite easy, because a lot of companies require you to learn German. So I'm not saying that if you don't know German, you won't find a job in Germany, because there are companies that are like, fine, you don't know German, but we'll still hire you because our work culture is international. But 90% of the companies in Germany would require to speak German. And it is similarly in all countries in Europe, like Spain, France, Belgium, Italy, and so on, where people would require you to speak the local language, not very well, not fluently, but at least to a level where you can have a simple conversation with somebody.
And what about placement, sir? The university will provide, or we have to go walk?
So this is one difference between masters in the US and masters in Europe and in India as well, that in India, once you are about to finish, the companies will come to universities and have placement and so on. And in the US, it's different, because you have to do internships. So once you're in your master's itself, you do internships in companies, and then you can get hired there. Whereas in Europe, most universities don't offer placements. So it's up to you to find internships, or once you're done, you apply. So what we call off campus, right? So you find companies which have openings and you apply and you do it. So there it's also based on luck. It's based on whether you fit their profile, what they are looking for. So yeah, I wouldn't classify it as easy or hard. It's luck, and it's also based on whether you fulfill what they're looking for. There's one question from somebody who has not given their name. It's N. So did you find masters easy? So it's again opinion-based question. So for me, it was easy. Yeah, it was good. It was a very nice experience. So I learned something completely different from what I did my bachelor's in or what I did my work in Bosch. So it was completely different. So for me, it was interesting to learn something new. And so for me, it was good and easy. Again, a question from Sahil who says, what's better, MBA or MS in terms of value, scope, cost of study? So in terms, I am not that well versed in MBA, so I don't know about it because I didn't do it and I was not interested in it. But I think in terms of scope, I think both of them have their own pros. That if you do MBA, you can get into management and so on. MS is more research. But one thing what I'd like to say, what I've observed is that if you're doing MBA, you do need to know the local language even more because you're in people management, right? You need to talk to people and so on. If you do MS, you are more into R&D and so on, so you can go by. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not able to answer your question. What is better in terms of scope and cost? It's not my area, so I'm sorry.
Sushant, is there any preference based on preference of the countries based on the stream which you are interested in learning?
Yes,
Preference
of course. So
yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I mean, if you already set your mind saying this is the stream I would like to do it in, then your countries are really reduced because there are only a few universities which would offer that stream. So here it's again because a few countries have certain streams are good. For example, it's a stereotype, but like Germany is good for mechanics. People who are interested in automotive industry and mechanics have to come to Germany, which is true to an extent because there are a lot of universities which provide high quality automotive engineering degrees in Germany. And for example, if you are interested in electronics and so on, it's more US, which is again true because most universities there are based in electronics and a lot of companies which hire electronics because most of the companies are based in the US. So yes. It depends on what's your area you want, what is the area you're looking for. Okay, there's one more question by Denzel. How different is the teaching compared to our country to other countries? Could we easily cope up there? Well, the teaching is a bit different compared to how it is, but it's fairly easy to cope up because we have been in the education system for 22 years right now, so it's easy. But yeah, it's slightly different. It takes some time to get used to. When I mean sometime, I mean like a week or 2 weeks for you to get used to the flow of it, how the classes are conducted and so on there compared to how it is in India. But it's not very hard to cope. Yeah, so that is it.
Yes, I guess, do we have any more questions? I guess there is a question, Sushant. I feel other countries value student skill more than school. Yeah, I mean, I think it's true. And it's also true in even in India for that matter. I mean, okay, it's not fully true because to some extent your score does matter, but it's not everything.
I have one question. So,
yes. Yes.
Madam, continue. Ask question. Nandini madam, please speak.
Yes. Sir, actually, which are the streams you would suggest in opting any of the in case of EC department in EC branch
Well,
in terms of scopes?
yeah, in terms of scope, again, it's hard to say what branch to take in terms of scope. But as I said earlier,
Yeah,
so
that is as per our.
yeah, it's as per your interest, because you should. So if you go to a branch for your just
No,
for
as of now, which are the streams are better to opt? Like,
well, yes. So there's one stream is like MEMS, which is evergreen. So there are a lot of jobs because MEMS is always evolving. So there's MEMS, electronics. In terms of when I mean electronics, I mean FPGA designing, PCB designing, and so on are jobs that are there on the market right now. Apart from that, in electronics, yeah. So there's, because here, as I said, so there's nothing called only electronics, because it's a branches are merged together. So there is electro optics, which you know about electronics, and optics as well, and so on. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not able to give you a answer saying, okay, this is the one, because there's no answer for that question.
yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sushant, one more question is there in the chat box.
Let me have a look, sir. How about food? Did you manage food? Is comfortable? Like in Israel or something? Well, it's fine for food because most countries do have an Indian population there, which means that there will be some store which sells Indian stuff, and you cook with yourself. As far as I am concerned, I never had an issue to find stuff that I need and cook. So it's very easy to find stuff and cook yourself.
Sushant, regarding accommodation, how do you find accommodation for yourself before you leave India?
Yeah, so if you're in India, so there are these. So in US, as I said, few universities give you accommodation with the application itself, that you are given a hostel spot immediately. In Germany, what I can speak about is that there are these student unions who have their apartments for students, and then you apply there. Once you have your letter of application, you can just apply, because they know that you will come, and then they will just make a list of students who will come and how many free apartments they have, and they will hand out apartments, and most apartments are shared. So you share our apartments with other students. So it's easy to apply, because now everything is online. So you can just apply online, and you can, since you're an international student, you get a slight preference, and you can have a slot for accommodation. So I think it works well that way. I heard that food is pretty much. Oh yeah, yes.
How comfortable these shared accommodations will be for ladies or women or girl students?
It is very comfortable. From my friends who have lived in this shared apartment, it's very, very nice. So it depends on what kind of accommodation you have. So usually, if it's shared with 2 people, then you are usually sharing with a fellow female itself. And usually shared accommodations are, you just share the kitchen. So you have your own room, your own bedroom and everything. You only share the kitchen and the common living room area. So that's what it is. And then there are shared accommodations, sharing of 4 people, sharing of 8 people, and so on. And then once it goes to 8 people, it becomes the accommodation is mixed. It has both men and women, boys and girls. But as I said, you only share the kitchen and the common living room. You have your own bedroom in all cases. So it's fairly comfortable and good. Yes, any more questions?
Sushant, one more in the chat box.
In the chat. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there are two questions. Okay. I heard that Indian food is pretty expensive in abroad countries. Well, it is if you compare it to how much you pay in India. So it will be more. But if you compare to the local, how much you pay for local things as well there, it's at par. So I wouldn't say it's expensive. It's on par with what you would pay for like a
So, sir,
Hello, yes.
so once we decide the area of interest,
Yes.
hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
So once
Yes.
we decide the area of interest to do higher studies, how to finalize the university based on like our interest? For example, if Australia.
So there it's again it's based on so one thing what I would suggest is not to apply to just one university, because then you are really there. You apply for multiple universities, but then you have to make like a list of what's your most preferred university to your least preferred university, and then based on how many applications you want to send, you just send it to the top 5 or top 10 based on how many applications you can send or you want to send. But there's no hard and fast rule like how to select. Again, it's based on your interest and whether you want to go to that country, whether you know somebody who's already been to that country and you can speak to them. But yeah, I'm sorry I can't give you any that answer, but I would say don't just apply to one. Make a list and then make a list of from most wished to least preferred, and then you can make a decision that way.
So is there application fee for all these colleges? Application fee is there?
For a few universities, yes, there are application fees from say $50 to $100. Similarly, from 50 euros to 100 euros. But few universities, there's no application fees because you have to send it by mail. So you will bear the burden of sending it by mail. All right, so there's one more question here who said, I have observed that schools abroad pay more attention to preparing students for the real world problems than just book feeding us and make us study for attendance and marks. Is this true? Yeah, well, it's as I said, the education system is a bit different compared to India and here. I wouldn't like to say that the Indian system is better or worse compared to this. But yeah, it's slightly different. It's also depend upon how open you are as a student. So it's a very general question and it's fairly opinion based. So yeah.
Yes, any more queries from the participants? Do you have any more queries from the participants? If not, if yes, please you can put it in the chat box.
Sahil, you have, I think, asked many questions. Please ask more questions so that our session will be interactive. Sahil, can you hear me? Madam. it looks no more questions. I think we can wind up the session.
Yes, sir. So thank you, Mr. Sushant, for the informative session. I'm sure participants have understood the process of pursuing higher education overseas and also solving the many queries of our participants. So no doubt it might have also cleared the mindset of many of them that there are hassles when applying for higher education overseas. And the actual reality, it's not. Okay. So thank you, Mr. Sushant, once again for enlightening us with your views.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
I now request Professor John Walder to propose a vote of thanks.
Sushant, there is no like a specific vote of thanks. You have given information from money to education, opportunities to improve your talent, to improve your finance, or everything you have covered within this 1 hour 15 minutes, and you have given your valuable time to our dear students. Almost all the participants are from our college. I wholeheartedly, sincerely thanks for your valuable time. Thank you very much, Sushant.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
At the same time, I thanks all the participants. Many of the participants complained regarding the signals problems with respect to the monsoon and all. Still, we had some 54 plus participants. So I thank you all the participants, and also I thank all my colleagues, particularly Mr. Vittal Bhatt, who has struggled hard to design and arrange all everything from A to Z. Thank you, sir. And thank you, one and all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, one and all. Have a great day.
Yeah, we'll end the session.